All right, thank you for staying with us. This morning, we get to talk about, development, and I'm talking about the list released by the presidency a few days ago, detailing the presidential pardon list, or, when the president activated one of his powers as the prerogative of mercy, and a list was released comprising of 175 individuals, those that are alive and, posthumously those that are dead as well. And it has been generating so much controversy. A statement from the presidential villa, detailed the presidential pardon and clemency to involve those that had issues with illegal mining, white-collar convict, remorseful drug offenders. Those are the statements and the words used by the presidential villa State House release. Foreigners, Major General Maman Vatsa, Major Akuba, Professor Magaji Garba, capital offenders as Maryam Sanda, Ken Saruwiwa, and the other Ogoni age were among the 175 convicts and former convicts who received President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's mercy on Thursday. And President Tinubu granted clemency to most of them based on the reports that the convicts are shown remorse and good conduct. He forgave some due to old age, the acquisition of the new vocational skills, or enrollment in the National Open University of Nigeria now. And the president also corrected the historic injustice committed by British colonialists against Sir Herbert Macaulay, one of Nigeria's foremost nationalists. In all, Presidential Advisory Committee on the Prerogative of Mercy, chaired by the Attorney General and Justice Minister, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, recommended pardon for 2 inmates, 15 former convicts, 11 of whom have died. The committee recommended clemency for 82 inmates and commutation of sentences for 65 inmates, 7 inmates on death row who also benefited from the presidential reprieve. The committee recommended that the president should commute their death sentences to life imprisonment, and Prince Fagbemi presented the committee's report at the Council of State meeting chaired by President Bola Tinubu. So looking at these precept after precept, there was pardon for 2, and 2 inmates, 15 former convicts, 11 of whom have died. And then the committee recommended clemency for 65 inmates, 7 inmates on death row, and recommended, that some will have their death row conviction, now being put at life sentences. So it's not just about this. Time will not permit us to really doubt those who are pardoned, their names, posthumous pardon, the Ogoni 9, victims of the Ogoni 9 that were honored, then the presidential clemency, and 1 or 2 or 3 of those cases of those persons who enjoyed these generosity of these pardon from Mr. President have really stood out. The issue of Maryam Sanda, who was convicted of killing her husband, and even the appeal court upheld that decision. She was not just pardoned or had a death sentence committed to life imprisonment. She was completely pardoned, and the reason for that, it was stated that her family reached out to those in charge and told them that it will be okay by going by this particular initiative, that she had 2 children so that she can take care of her children, and that's not going well when Nigerians are taught to say, what do you mean? The issue of Faruk Lawan, who was convicted for, a particular crime as well that has to do with fraud, he has served the sentencing, but the state is saying, go and see no more, you have been pardoned. So we look at some of these words and intricacies. We have with us today legal practitioners, those who teach law and still practicing law. Dr. Misbau Lateef, he's a law lecturer and also a lawyer, public affairs analyst as well. Dr. Lateef, good morning. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good morning and good to see you too. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And of course, we have another prince, Prince Ademola Oyedokun, a lawyer, public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us, Prince Oyedokun.
It is my pleasure to be here this morning. Good morning, Western Sprint Television, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Now, here we go, because we have so many things to unpack. Let me start with you, Dr. Lateef, what do you say to this development? I'm sure I've seen your, some of your takes on this matter. Nigeria, some are outraged. Some just want to know, how does this come about? Who are these persons? How are these lists generated? Who are the beneficiaries? Because we're in Nigeria, and people will say somebody don't know somebody. In the language of the street, oh, somebody reach out to somebody. It's by connection. It's by this. For the purpose of information and public enlightenment, of which you're always ready to give, how are these lists generated?
All right, thank you, and good morning once again.
Good morning.
It's true that I've made some comments regarding this development, and I have also followed, I would say, the public outrage that has attended this development. For me, none of this is exactly surprising, and I want to say that, yes, it is anticipated that public opinion will be divided on issues like this. But the truth of the matter is that the exercise of prerogative of mercy, by its very nature, is wired, if I can use that word, to provoke this kind of reactions. And I would say that if the pardon granted to Abat Macaulay, and I would say rightly so, was granted or had been granted shortly after he was convicted, rightly or wrongly, the same or some of the negative reaction that we have seen today will have also accompanied it. So for me, it is not really surprising or shocking that this has received divided, I would say, public reaction. But that having been said, I think the important thing to focus on, and as I have said elsewhere, is that the exercise of prerogative of mercy is, generally speaking, an extrajudicial power vested in the executive by virtue of Section 175 of the 1999 Constitution with respect to the federal government, the president, and then Section 212 for the governors of states. Now, this is a standard, I would say, exercise of power in all democracies that I know. In the most liberal of democracy, here in the UK, in America, in Canada, everywhere, you have this in all their constitution, I would say in constitutional democracy. And it is never meant to be exercised arbitrarily or casually. And the important thing to focus on is to check if this power has been exercised properly or exercised improperly. And in the present context, it basically requires that, one, the president does not have to know, or the governor does not have to know any of these persons personally. Right. Because there is a standard procedure for this, and there is precedent as well. I think the starting point, from my understanding, is that there is a committee headed by the Attorney General of the Federation, which is called the Presidential Committee on Prerogative of Mercy. And this committee is comprised of officials from the correctional facilities, right, and also NGO and some other persons, a very long list of our membership. And then they go around, they make their recommendation based on certain metrics, which include the remorsefulness or otherwise of the convicts, their propensity or so to commit the same crime if free, what they have displayed so far in their correctional facility. There are quite many considerations. Like in the case of Sanda, the issue of who cater for the children in the absence. And then this goes on to the Council of State, which is, eminent body of former head of state, the president himself being the chairman, the governor in the state in that case, the Minister of Justice again, and governors and all of that. So this list, from what we can gather from the public, went through this due process of law. And to the extent of that, it is right, in my opinion, to say that the president has exercised his power constitutionally and properly. But then there is also the moral angle to this, and I'm aware of this. I mean, based on the outrage I referred to earlier. But the question again goes to the essence of criminal justice system in the first place. What is the essence of convicting people or sending them to prison? I mean, researchers have proved to us, and evidence have confirmed that the essence is primarily correctional. So if the essence is to correct people, then why do we keep them in jail permanently at the expense of the state? Why do we even kill them? And Nigeria, as I speak to you now, is a signatory to international moratorium, against death penalty, meaning that ordinarily our convicts who have been sentenced to death, are not supposed to be killed. They are supposed to be, so basically,
they should have their sentences commuted.
Yes, thank you. Commutation. But you see, the power of the president under Section 175, as I mentioned earlier, is all-encompassing. It includes commutation, termination, if you like it. Actually terminating the conviction time and all of that. So in summary, for me, just to start with, I think, yes, the outrage is valid. People are entitled to be divided as they are, but then the exercise of this extrajudicial power has been exercised, I would say, properly and constitutionally by the president. And I'm at home with it. I don't really have any disagreement with it.
All right, Dr. Lateef, just before I move to Prince Oyedokun, I'd like to ask you, you've given some reasons here, but I'd like to know, and for the sake of our viewers too, do we have any statutory guidelines or criteria to determine those who qualify for clemency in Nigeria?
Yes, I am aware there is a guideline, and this is why I said earlier that it is not an arbitrary exercise of power. There is a guided procedure, and even at the states, to be honest, I'm aware the Osun State government did the same thing recently, and you will not see me anywhere really come out to criticize exercise of power in this manner. And I've said it elsewhere. You see, the nature of the exercise is rooted in what is called grace, mercy. So the nature of mercy itself, or grace, is such that it is conferred on people that the public opinion does not necessarily support. People would think don't deserve it. And I've also referenced elsewhere that even the grace of God itself is often conferred on people that others generally think don't deserve it. This is why people with thought have not merited something, they get it. But really, talking law now, the exercise of this power is such that it doesn't discriminate against convicts. All convicts are the same in the eyes of the law. So if you would rather say, why would you think that one convict deserves this mercy and others don't deserve it? And if you think others don't deserve it, the question then is that the exercise here, as I said earlier, is rooted in mercy. And the nature of mercy is such that, well, it doesn't have to
largely unfair.
Well, the requirement of fairness or otherwise does not arise here. This is why it is called extrajudicial exercise of power, which is rooted in grace. Again, for people we don't necessarily think deserve it.
All right, Dr. Misbau. As they say, to err is human and to forgive is divine. Let's quickly move to Prince Oyedokun. Prince Oyedokun, are you still with us?
I'm with you.
All right. Prince, the president takes advice from the Council of State as far as those who get pardoned are concerned. So my question is, how binding is the advice of the Council of State? Or can the president use his own initiative and say, no, the Council of State has advised, but he doesn't feel such and such classes of people should get pardoned. So basically, how binding is the advice of the Council of State on Mr. President as far as prerogative of mercy is concerned?
Okay, this issue of prerogative of mercy was not done by the Council of State, but the Council of State approves it, and then it becomes the exercise of the power by the president. And the committee that recommended the beneficiaries, they are men of means, people who you cannot just arbitrarily accuse of being corrupt. Take, for example, now, the Attorney General of the Federation, the Permanent Secretary and Special Duty on Intergovernmental Affairs, the representative of Nigerian Police, the representative of Correctional Service, the representatives of the Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, the representatives of Christian Association of Nigeria, Justice in this present year, the one that was reconstituted in 2025, I recollect Justice Augustine Utasha was there, Professor Akazum Abba was there, Chief Akinolu Olujimi SAN was there, and many more. So they must have done their thorough job before they made the recommendation to the Council of State. Imagine the institutions that were involved in this recommendation, and then before it goes to the Council of State. So when the Council of State recommends something for Mr. President, so we, Mr. President, as an individual who has been conferred with our executive power, just overrule them. You will not go back and begin to scrutinize every individual that was recommended. To me, whether this power was properly executed, I will say yes. Whether it is legally and constitutionally done, I will say yes. The question now is, there are about 3 persons that are of concern to the public. The case of Sanda, the case of Faruk Lawan, and then the case of a certain kidnapper from Edo State, who I read somewhere was involved in the kidnap of Chief Osekome, from Justice of Edo State, and so on and so forth.
Right.
The offenses of these people were considered very serious and grievous. Out of 175 people, some are alive, some have concluded their terms, some are posthumous. But this particular 3 set of beneficiaries are the concerns of Nigeria. And why is it so? I think the reason why it is so is that there is always a conflict between the purpose of law, the purpose, the end of justice. We have what we call retributive justice, we have restorative justice, and then we have this public morality that is standing in between. The people who seriously believe in retributive justice believe that anybody who has committed an offense, deserves maximum punishment of that offense they have committed. They see no reason why somebody like Maryam Sanda should be forgiven. I was personally present most of the time when our trial went on. Right. And I was also lucky to be in court for another case on the day of the judgment. I had a judgment from Justice Alilu in detail. Honestly, if I were to be the president and I have such personal view of what she had done, irrespective of, because she's not the only one that has been convicted who has a child to nurture. There are many people in her circumstances who are not so lucky. Forgive me, Nigerian has dealt with me.
It's all right.
All right, Prince. Yes, that was my point exactly. You wanted to say something. If you were the president, please, I want you to land on that.
If I were the president and I have this privileged information I know about Sanda's case, probably I will not accord her such a privilege or prerogative of mercy. But another thing, we even say she is in such a position that she has benefited. When you have, I think when you have somebody who you want to benefit from this type of opportunity, people who have people in custody should make application in advance to the Office of Attorney General of Federation, and then they will be able to consider your candidate or your convict or your relative who is in custody for such an opportunity. So if the family of Maryam Sanda has been making efforts to convince the Attorney General, and they canvass, and the committee is convinced, I don't think anybody should blame them for according her the constitutional opportunity which she has. So, and if you have somebody who is in similar position with Sanda, and you have not made efforts to reach out to the people who are in charge of the committee, then who do you have to blame? You cannot kick against our opportunity.
But Prince, sorry. But Prince Oyedokun, sorry to cut in.
If your own people have not pushed for it, you can't blame the government.
But the question now is, Prince, are there no legal remedies for individuals or institutions who feel that this pardon is unjust? So are there any legal remedies for them? For those individuals or institutions who feel that, no, these ones are unjust, what can be done legally?
You talk of justice when the matter is still pending before the court. And I think justice has been done when she was convicted and properly sentenced. the exercise of the power by the president is discretionary. And it is constitutionally conferred. So it is unquestionable.
So there's no, my point is, so there's no legal remedy for this. Nothing can be done about this at this point.
What will be who is wrong? Nobody is wrong. The president has exercised his power and he has done so constitutionally and legally so.
All right. Now, before, right, I would love to move to Dr. Misbau, but before I do that, talking about who is wrong, the case of Maryam Sanda, according to the statement from the presidential villa, State House, they said age 37 was sentenced to death in 2020 for culpable homicide and spent 6 years, 8 months at Suleja Medium Security Custodial Center. Her family pleaded for her release, arguing that it was in the best interest of her 2 children. The plea was also anchored on her good conduct in jail, her remorse, and her embracement of a new lifestyle, demonstrating her commitment to being a model prisoner. That was the explanation given. In fact, I think she was the only one who had such a lengthy, lines given as explanation by that particular statement. Now, my colleague Daniel asked what can be done in this case, and you are saying nobody is wronged. How about the family of the man that was killed? If actually they are feeling they have been wronged. At some point they were feeling like justice has been done, justice has been served. All of a sudden, 6 years after, the thing has been overturned. Do you think they have not been, the service has not been done to them? Whatever they were feeling before, that justice has been served, it has been taken away from them. Do you feel they don't feel wronged at this time?
They will be wronged if what has been done to them is illegal. The question is, does that power exist in our constitution? The answer is yes.
So the issue
legally done, constitutionally done, the answer is yes.
So the issue here is morality.
So there's no wrong here. Now, if it is a question of morality, then law is amoral.
Law is amoral. Interesting.
Morality is morality.
I will come back to you. Let me go to
law is amoral.
Right. Let me go to Dr. Lateef. I was almost saying Dr. Lateef. Okay, Misbau Lateef. I think that's where that comes from. Now, there are some that are said, Doctor, there are some that are said to have served those sentences. Yet the state is saying, like Faruk Lawan, the state is saying we are pardoning you. How does that work? That's the first in line of my question. For the purpose of education, they are given a particular sentence and they have served it, and the state is saying we are pardoning you. What does that mean exactly?
Well, pardoning those who have served out their term simply means they are forgiven. More or less like they are given a clean slate, like they never committed a crime in the first place.
Right.
If Faruk Lawan, for example, will ordinarily not be entitled to contest for an election, I think until after 10 years or so, post conviction or serving of his term. But now that he has a clean slate of sorts, so essentially it goes to the same thing. Like I said earlier, the exercise of grace in such a way to, to maybe help some people in their correctional, process and realignment to the society. My brother made some very beautiful points. President Oyedokun, which I do not necessarily disagree with. Talking about the philosophical understanding of criminal justice system and issue of morality and all of that. But the point again is that even the issue of morality, there is nothing such as, universal morality. And this is why people are divided here. The question is the morality of who? Yes, justice has been served. They have been convicted, they have served their time, and some who have served their time, they have been pardoned now. But then when you say morality, I personally, for example, my moral sense of assessment of this is that a Sanda who committed a truly horrific crime, deserved the justice that was served to her. However, that does not also disqualify her from grace to have the opportunity to nurture her 2 children. And if she didn't have any child,
Dr. Lateef, sorry to cut in. In the case of Sanda, do you agree with Prince Oyedokun that nothing can be done? And the question is, Are there any circumstances for this to be challenged in court, or you are saying it's an impossibility? It cannot be challenged in court by individuals or institutions who feel wronged by this particular pardon?
Okay, yes, I agree with my brother to the extent that, yes, this is a discretionary exercise of power. It is non-justiciable in the sense that you cannot challenge it in court. However, if there are procedural irregularity, it can be challenged. If, for example, the committee, because you asked me a question earlier, and I'll go back to that question now, where you asked if there are guidelines. So if the guideline, because in law we say the exercise of discretion must also be, must also be justice, must also be fair, rather. There's a term we use for that. I can't recall that now.
Judicial and judicial. Must be judicial.
Thank you, judicial and judicial. Thank you, Prince. So that you have a discretionary power does not necessarily mean that you exercise it arbitrarily. It must be judicial and judicious. So the point is, yes, the exercise of prerogative of mercy can also be challenged if the procedure has not been followed. For example, if there was no any committee recommendation, if the president just wakes up one day and gives what we call executive order in Nigeria and say, I free so, and so, or if the Council of State, which was specifically mentioned in Section 175, was not complied with. So these are bases, but these are technical ground anyway.
All right.
They do not go to the roots of the exercise of that power in this.
Dr. Lateef,
so
point made.
Yeah.
Yeah. But before we go on break, because when we come back, I'd like to ask about the issue of deterrence and consequences in Nigeria for crimes, because this is the position of many persons. Many persons never know Sanda. They don't know her. They have never heard of her, but they know the case and they are feeling what is going on here. And some of these pardon. But quickly before that, there is a particular pardon for one Kelvin Prosper Oniara. He was a dreaded leader of a kidnapping and robbery gang that was implicated in the killing of many police and military officers, as well as some other victims. On 25th September 2013, a combined security team of the Nigerian Army and DSS operatives arrested Kelvin, a notorious terrorist, kidnapper, kingpin, and armed robber who has been on the wanted list of security agencies. Kelvin Oniara, who is also known as Kevin Ibruwe, masterminded the kidnap of, Barrister Zekome, George, in Edo State, a tall female official, and the list goes on and on. Now, this particular individual has been said to be pardoned right now. How does that work actually? Especially, he has been said to have been involved in killing of security men. What does this do to those men if actually they now see him outside and know as the one that killed some of them? Because we are talking, you have said it's mercy and grace, but we are talking about law here. How does that work? Do you think this, because you have said this is not about fairness as well, but are there not some of these applications that can be rejected, irrespective of how remorseful those beneficiaries are? Dr. Lateef. All right, we go on a quick break right now, because this is one thing that many Nigerians are very sensitive about. We go on this quick break. When we return, we pick it up from there. And we want you as well to be part of these. You can, be a part of that on our YouTube channel, for you to tell us what you think about the development, even on our Facebook page as well, and your take on this matter. They call it grace, they call it mercy, they call it prerogative of mercy, but then we have so much to talk about. Stay with us.